A new study from the UK suggests your birth date has an impact on your lifelong health. Researchers collected data from nearly 500,000 people and found a correlation between birth month and health, which is especially strong in women. Joining us to explain all this, AM medical expert Dr. Marla Shapiro. This was a substantial size study.
So this is a UK biobank, so it follows almost 500,000 people over a long period of time and collects all types of data. And this study looked at the concept of something called programming, which means an in utero exposure, something that happens to you when you're in the uterus before you're born, can somehow program the outcome of your health. We've seen this, for example, with moms who smoke, that they have, you know, smaller babies. This whole concept of programming, so the environment that you're exposed to during gestation can influence what happens to you later in life. It's a fascinating concept.
So what are the kinds of things that it found in terms of, you know, the actual health?
So what it found that was really interesting is looking at birth month. So birth month is irrespective of social status, education. It's sort of a random event. You may want to have a May baby or a September baby, but often these events are just random and you can't necessarily pick the month that you conceive. And what it found was that children who were born in the summer months, so we're speaking like May, June, July, August, that set of months, generally were found to be slightly heavier at birth, taller as adults, and in girls, they were found to go through puberty slightly later than winter babies, and that generally is a good thing, less estrogen exposure rather than having estrogen exposure early in life. So these were markers that were found to be programmed in utero, and you didn't see this with winter babies, you only saw them with summer babies, and you could follow them through life and see that, in fact, they had these better markers of good health.
So what about like a vitamin D exposure, anything?
Well, that's the postulated thought here. That's what's happening is that particularly in the second trimester where much of this development is happening, that there was greater exposure in those periods of time to vitamin D, which is the root they feel, the relationship between this type of programming that led to the differences in weight, the differences in height, compared to babies that didn't have that type of vitamin D exposure. So it leads to an interesting hypothesis, and future studies, you know, doesn't mean that if you take a vitamin D supplement that you can program in this same way, and that's something that will have to be looked at. But that was really the relationship that they found here, that it was the exposure to the sunlight and vitamin D.
Well, and as you say, I mean, sometimes these things you can't plan, and it just kind of happen. But if would then the takeaway might be try vitamin D, you know, more supplement, because it can't hurt, or?
Well, you know, when we talk about pregnancy, we talk about folic acid supplements because we know how important that is for neural tube development, and moms have to have adequate exposure to folic acid and often won't get it through their diet. We know that vitamin D is very difficult to get through diet alone, and we talk about as Canadians that we do need a vitamin D supplement. So what's the take-home message? We're not sure what the take-home message is here, but it's an interesting study and an interesting correlation. But certainly it speaks to making sure that you're looking at your diet and getting enough vitamin D supplementation through vitamin D supplemented orange juice, your vitamin D that you get in your dairy products, milk, egg yolks, that type of thing. But it's an interesting correlation, this thought of programming, that what you're exposed to in utero can determine what happens decades down the road.
It is fascinating. Dr. Marla, thank you for coming in. And you can read more in Marla's blog. That'll be on our website, canadaam.ctvnews.ca.